Welcome to Homemade, everybody. My name is Alex. So good to see you. So good to be cooking with you. Hope everyone's having a great day. Really excited for this one. We've got a buttermilk brine chicken quarters with spicy creamy mushroom sauce. We're joined here by our friends from DFA, Dairy Farmers of America. I've also got my friend Lisa B here on the chat moderating. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Chef Alex. I'm excited to eat some buttermilk fried chicken. I'm from the South, so it better be good.
Oof, nobody knows buttermilk fried chicken probably better than you in this building, so I'm excited for this one. Hopefully I do it justice, but really excited to cook this one. We've got some really amazing products that we're highlighting here from our friends at Dairy Farmers of America. They sent us some of this cream from Kemp's. They've also got some Plugra butter that we're using and the buttermilk. And so we're gonna first get a nice brown on our chicken breasts, which have been brining overnight in the buttermilk. Then we're gonna get those going into the oven while we start working on our sauce. So that's gonna be sauteing some shallots, some garlic, and some butter. And then we're gonna incorporate some of the mushrooms, the rest of that cream and sauce ingredients. And we've got some rice cooking as well. And we will start going with this searing of the chicken. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about DFA and one of the reasons why we love Dairy Farmers of America. They support over 10,000 farmer owners, and they're really committed to sustainability, which is something that we care a lot about here, just in terms of their farming practices and efficiency. And also they can help you figure out what's local. And so you can go to dfamilk.com and you can check out recipes, also figure out what products you can get in your area. So we're gonna go on the searing of the chicken. We're gonna just get a little bit of oil to coat the bottom of the pan, not too much, maybe about a couple of tablespoons or so. And we will spread that around, add a little bit more if needed to fully coat the bottom. Why do we wanna fully coat the bottom? Make sure that that chicken doesn't really have any sticking points where there's any dry parts of the pan that aren't covered in oil. So just a little bit more, it's all right to be liberal. And we'll heat that up to pretty high heat. And because we want to get a good sear. If you listen to some of our other lessons, you know the science of what's happening is Maillard's reaction when we're browning that meat, kind of caramelizing it, giving it that delicious color, that crispiness with the skin. So if you're not cooking it at a high heat, you're not going to get that. And I want to talk a little bit about buttermilk brine. So we have this brining here in buttermilk for 12 to 24 hours. So overnight is ideal. If you want to do it the day before, it's going to be even better. The more time you give it, the more flavor is going to penetrate that. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening with this buttermilk brine. First of all, what the heck is buttermilk? Buttermilk is basically the liquid that's left over from churning of the butter process. And there's homemade versions of it that add just a little bit of acid to milk, and basically you're letting the milk ferment. And so the acid from the milk is what's giving it that flavor, and also you'll get kind of almost a little bit of like that lumpiness. The milk isn't bad, but it is starting to ferment. The science of brining with buttermilk is that we add a little salt, so it is getting some salt penetration into that piece of chicken and adding delicious seasoning throughout that piece instead of just basically on the outer edges of it. If you were to just season something with a dry seasoning, you're only penetrating the outer level. And so the brine allows us to season the entire thing much more easily. With buttermilk, we're also getting some lactic acids and some enzymes that are breaking down the proteins and making just basically a juicier, more well-seasoned piece of chicken. I'm patting this dry to get a good sear. If you don't pat it dry, it's gonna get it really tough to sear. At this point, we do wanna add a little bit more seasoning. So we wanna add some salt. We can be pretty liberal. Nice even coating, same thing with the pep. Flip it over, even coating. There we are. And then we'll get this into the pan, skin side down. So we're going skin side down first. I'm gonna move the oil around just to kind of make sure it doesn't stick. Keep that going. This is at about a medium-high heat. And continue searing. So I'm gonna kind of try to evenly sear this, and I'm gonna do that by taking some tongs and just kind of moving it around a little bit, especially on the edges. You see I'm kind of like lifting this up at a 45-degree angle, because if I'm just leaving it there, even if I'm sliding it around, it's really not gonna get the edges of the chicken, and so we just wanna make sure we get that even sear. So hold it for maybe about a minute on those edges to really get an even sear. And then we'll keep rotating. And then while this is continuing to sear, I'll just give it another couple minutes there. I'm gonna start working on some of this coating of the mushrooms. And first, we will go also with the garlic and the shallots. That's gonna be the first step of our sauce. And this is a pretty monstrous shallot we have here. So we're just gonna use half of it. And shallots to me are one of those staple items you gotta have in your pantry. There's just something really kind of more vibrant to me about a pickled shallot or just using shallots as opposed to regular onions. They're just more powerful. There's more of a punch. So we're gonna get these peeled, and we're just gonna do kind of a fine mince. And so we've got them on our flattest side. We're gonna kind of cut down about several times, and that's just gonna help us with our mince. And then we will cut.
Kathy said growing up as a kid, buttermilk and cornbread in a glass. That's what she used to do. Yes, I've heard other people say that too, where they would have buttermilk with their cornbread.
I feel like most baked things are gonna be a lot better with buttermilk, especially if they have milk. You're gonna get that extra punch of flavor from that fermentation. And so we don't want to get it more brown than this. This is like the max point of browning, but you'll see here, we want to kind of even coating, and we'll just get a little bit here on that last little edge and then pop it in the oven. And so I'm going to put this directly onto a little sheet pan. And why am I not using another pan? Because one, we don't want to make more of a mess for ourselves, create more dishes. And so we'll use this rather than another pan. But the other piece is that we're gonna use some of like the fat. All the delicious flavoring from the chicken is what we're gonna use for the sauce. So I'll get this going into the oven at 325. We'll bake this for about 15 minutes. Lisa, would you mind setting a timer, please?
Yes, setting a timer now.
Thank you, friend. And so we're gonna heat up our pan just a little bit more, get this ready for the sauce. And I wanted to talk a little bit about my love of garlic. You probably heard me talk about my abuela in other classes, my grandma, for those of us who don't speak Spanish. She's been a big inspiration in my cooking, and she put garlic in everything. And so she was thinking a lot about just the anti-inflammatory properties and things for our immune system. She would read these nutrition books like they were Bibles. It was amazing. And she learned English to learn about nutrition primarily. She really made this medicine in terms of like keeping us safe from getting sick. I truthfully never get sick, and I think it's because I eat a lot of alliums, and garlic is a big part of it, along with spices. But there's so many good things in terms of anti-inflammatory processes and also even cancer prevention. And so I highly recommend that you incorporate it into your diet. Personally, I struggle with just the straight up raw garlic, even though I do love garlic. And so a lot of times I'll just try to have some on deck in my pantry with confit garlic or roasted garlic. And I'll just have it in just a little bit of oil. And so I can just pull a couple cloves out. And especially if they're nice and soft, I can kind of like spread them onto toast like they're butter. And so that's kind of what I like to do with them. So I've got this going here as a base, and I still need to cut my mushrooms. So pretty soon I'm gonna get this turned off because I don't wanna burn my garlic and shallots. So you'd really wanna cut your mushrooms ahead of time, but we're just getting this ready and prepped ahead. And then we will chop these mushrooms. And just a little note about mushrooms, right? Complicated sometimes to clean. Like people look at them and they're almost a little scary looking. Sometimes they come pre-cleaned, and so you don't really need to really necessarily give them a good like brush or anything. You can just give them a good quick rinse. Typically with these button mushrooms, from the roots there's a little bit of soil. So I'm just gonna first cut off the bottom there, And then I'm gonna cut them in half. And for these, since they're pretty big, we're gonna six them, right? And for smaller button mushrooms, you could, I would say, quarter them. And we're gonna get this off the heat so that our shallots and garlic don't burn. They've got a nice color here. Then we'll add our mushrooms here. Beautiful. And I don't know if there's any other big mushroom fans. I love cooking them and eating them at home, but my new thing has been foraging. We've got tons of great mushrooms here in the Northwest. So I've been going out with some of my friends who are a little bit more knowledgeable, and they've been kind of teaching me just a little bit about the basics of identifying mushrooms. Went down to Oregon, and we came back with pounds and pounds and pounds of mushrooms. We had chanterelles and porcinis, and there's something about the whole process that really kind of just makes you feel, I don't know, like a grown-up kid on a treasure hunt. So I'm getting these going into the pan here, and you could get the red pepper flakes incorporated into the shallots and everything before. We don't have too many of them. I'm just incorporating them now while I finish up cutting these mushrooms. And then this is also that point where you want to drop that butter in. You could do it earlier when you have the shallots and the garlic, but we had some rendered fat left over, so I kind of used that first before I threw in this butter. And that smell is powerful, both with this amazing butter from Flugra, also the aromatics from the shallots and the garlic. It's really, really doing a lot. And these mushrooms are just kind of starting to saute. It's interesting when you listen, the mushrooms have such a high moisture content, and they're almost kind of spongy. So when you press them down, they almost kind of talk to you. If you listen, you can hear the moisture. I don't know if it'll pick up on camera, but if you push it down, you can hear this kind of, it's almost like they're talking to you as you push it down. You can hear that moisture releasing, and they're gonna cook down significantly with this sauce, right? So I'm gonna get going on this parsley, continue sauteing. We're doing about a quarter cup of parsley, just the leaves. So I'll just kind of cut off the stem here to make it easier for myself to pick them. And make sure I'm counting on you in the chat here. If you see that I need to give this a stir, let me know. It's a collaborative cooking process here. Parsley is an herb that I am learning to love. It's not one that I was really exposed to a lot in Colombian cuisine. It's definitely used a little bit here and there, but it's definitely not one that we had all the time growing up. And I'm kind of finding new applications for it. It is really, really beautiful, especially as a garnish. And for this dish, it really fits with more of the flavor profile so much more. We've got about a quarter cup there. And so we have a little bit of soy sauce here and the beef bouillon. And so we're gonna incorporate that with the delicious cream that we got from Kemp's over here. And continue cooking this down. And while I do that, I'm gonna continue chopping up this parsley. Quarter cup here. There's some kind of chemical reaction with dairy products, high-fat dairy products especially, and cream, and I just love the way that they dance together. Butter and soy sauce, to me, is like, that's a recipe for tastiness in so many dishes.
It smells insane in here. Like, our mouths are watering behind the camera. We're ready to eat.
I'm in the same boat. Already the aromatic smell, that parsley doing good things. And we've also got a little bit of lemon as well. So cut that off for about a teaspoon or so. Again, this is like up to your palate with this recipe. If you want a higher acid content, you're welcome to play around with that. We're gonna do about a teaspoon here, and then we'll test a little bit more. I'm gonna give this chicken just a good check. We'll go and see how it is and see how we're doing here.
You are 2 minutes away from the chicken being complete.
Oh, beautiful. My spidey senses were tingling. And so we've got this rice here that's ready. It's all cooked, and so we're ready to serve that up. As soon as the sauce is cooked down just a little bit more, you can see that when you push down on these mushrooms, they don't have like a full give. They're still somewhat intact. So we're gonna need to continue cooking them down for just a second here. And we also want to add the sake and mirin is a good thing to add kind of right when you add all of the ingredients, but we wanted to make sure that everything is kind of like fully incorporated there. So we're going to do it now. We want to get this going to high heat just to cook that off with the sake and the mirin. So we'll probably do another about a couple minutes here, which should be perfect timing with the chicken. And so at this point, we can cut this at a bias. And that's going to give us some nicer cuts in terms of just larger little slices to garnish the whole dish and also the rice. But for the rice, we've got this furikake. This sake and mirin's continuing to cook off here. Still pretty, they're now getting some cooked through mushrooms, which is great. So we should be at a perfect timing to get this off the stove. I've got these scallions here ready to go as a garnish. So we got furikake just to cover the rice there. And let's check this chicken. Let's see where we're at. Nice, we got just a little bit more color on this chicken. Let's give it a temp. Oh yeah, we're there, absolutely. Stovetop doesn't want to stop talking to me sometimes. It happens, we got a lot going on here. All right, we have these mushrooms here. Sorry about that, folks. We have this rice here we can kind of do on the side, and we can get the chicken just right on top. We're working around the technology, folks. But we can also garnish with some of the scallions right below the mushrooms. We can do a little bit on top of the mushrooms directly. That's a good way to do it. All right, there we are.
That looks gorgeous.
Yes. I think it looks pretty nice. Should we dig in?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Got to get some rice in there. Yum. That is good. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. Thanks for our friends at DFA Milk. If you want to go to dfamilk.com, you can see where to find their products, get some more amazing recipes. Thanks so much, everybody, for joining.